In our first part of this Geminar series, we had champion elk caller Mr. Tony Gilbertson with us. Then the second part, it was a world champ and Colorado elk slayer himself, Mr. Jermaine Hodge. In part 3, we had the Northern Don of Alberta, Canada, the Canadian elk slayer himself, Mr. Travis O'Shea. And grinders, the hits just keep on coming. It's part 4 of our Elk Calling Geminar series. And on this week's show, boy, do we have a treat for all of you. We have the very best elk caller I myself have ever hunted with. He has over 40 years of elk calling under his belt, and hundreds of bulls has fell under his spell. We call him El Jefe, WWJGD. That's right. We have the leader of the ElkBros Nation and one of my best and dearest friends in the whole world, the man with the plan, Mr. Joe Giglia is our guest tonight. You won't want to miss a second of this show. Get your popcorn ready, folks, and settle in. This guy will literally teach you how to call your mother-loving socks off. That discussion, our ElkBros shout-outs, and questions from our ElkBros mailbox. So, my friends, pull up a chair, adjust your volumes just right, and welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting, brought to you by ElkBros.com, with your host Gilbert Ornelas and elk hunting coach Joe Giglia. You want to hunt elk? They live to hunt elk. Their goal is to share with you what they have learned grinding it out for over 35 seasons, doing what they love. So come on into camp and set a spell. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunters.
Hello there, everyone. If it's your first time with us, glad to have you. Hope you enjoy our show. And as always, for those blue collar hunters following our show and grinding it out with us every week, welcome back to Elk Camp. Boys and girls, let's get this party started. That's right, I'm back. I'm Gilbert Ornelas, the host of your show, coming to you from Spring, Texas, and joining me tonight, we have the ninja from Cimarron, New Mexico, Mr. Leroy Chavez. We have the Venezuelan Mafia tonight in the house, the Northern Don of Dallas, Texas, Mr. Manano Grataron. We have the legend from Cuesta, New Mexico, Mr. R.C. Knox is in the house. And coming in from Colorado, that's right, we got the Colorado madman himself, the certified ElkBros hunting coach, the founder of the Western Contours podcast and Western Fly Covers. That's right, Mr. Guy Duplanche is in the house. Last, but certainly not least, our number one guest tonight, the very best elk hunter and caller I have ever graced the mountain with the past 14 seasons. My brother from another mother and my very best friend, El Jefe, ElkBros founder and ElkBros Brain Trust, bringing you over 40 years of elk calling knowledge and success. Our champion, Mr. Joe Giglia. Let's get it going, ElkBros. What's happening, fellas?
What's going on, brothers?
We had a little Velveteen Rabbit going on.
I couldn't resist, man. Gil's on fire tonight, boy.
We fired up, boy. We got the man, the guy who's made all this start tonight, fellas. We got Joe Giglia in with us. He's not feeling good. He's kind of a little under the weather, but we're going to pick that elk calling brain of his and get this thing started tonight, fellas.
I think that was just an excuse, man, in case he misses the mark, you know, as the guest on his own show. He might be a little bit nervous. He can't. We got to concur. He can't tell us what to do tonight, right? He's the guest,
right.
And not the boss.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Gil's the boss tonight. So
I heard Hefe.
There goes the boss.
I heard Hefe somewhere.
Yeah,
that's on the
did.
mountain. That's on the other side. Look, don't acquiesce that fast, Gil. Come on, man. I thought Gil said, "I'm the El Jefe."
This is a little bit awkward, man. I'm just releasing the reins and letting it roll. So.
Pretty cool, man. Well, I appreciate you entrusting us tonight, Joe. We're sorry that you're feeling a little under the weather, but we're going to lead you down the right road, and we're going to get this thing started off quick with the ElkBros mailbox.
Beto, so that means he just released the rain, so that means we can
both
on-
go
unleashed.
on leash, right?
That's what I'm saying. It's an unleashed episode.
Right.
Oh, man,
Everything
dude.
is karma, bro. So you got little Tomas and little Clara.
He's crying right there in the door. Can you hear him?
See?
We're going to
Forgive
reel
me.
these boys back in and get to our content because it's got a lot of stuff we're going to cover tonight, guys. We're going straight to our Elk Bros mailbox. These are questions that we've received on partner or solo calling. And Chab, you're going to lead us off tonight.
Okay, the first question comes from Chris McKelvey from Meridian, Idaho. He says, if I find a raked up tree and there's fresh sign in the area, would raking on his tree be better than just raking on any old tree to trigger a reaction? Well, my opinion is that it doesn't matter if you rake on his tree, because I think basically when you rake on a tree, you're trying to get rid of your velvet. And I don't know how often a bull returns to that raked tree. You know, I may be totally wrong, but I think there's no significance in
Yeah, they're
raking
not
his
like
tree.
whitetails, I don't believe.
Yeah,
Or
they are.
dogs.
They're territorial rubs.
Yeah.
But you know that Chav is right. It depends on what Chris is finding. And shout out to McKelvey. He supports, blue collar, Elk Bros,
Definitely.
and Western Contours. Love you,
Absolutely. Chris is the bomb.
Yeah, because I know that they'll return to that same area next year and find a different tree in the same area, but I don't know how often they would return to the same tree.
Well,
I can tell you a story about last year that I'll keep it short, but I would go and I would kind of do the same thing. I'd rake, in that general area of his rakes and rubs and whatnot. And he'd let me sit there and play and play and play. And I'd move on because it was, 30, 35 minutes. And then I'd hear that SOB right back where I was at, hitting that tree back up. And he was an old bull, man. And he was an ass kicker. Excuse me, Joe. Sorry, but we're on.
You're good.
But yeah, I think that there is territorial rubs or rakes that they use in areas, right? They do get those glands, and they'll scent that area up, and that's what kind of led me into that area, was finding those and market them and then trying to pattern that guy out. But
it's just you can't do what another bull elk does. So when he leaves his scent gland on there and another bull elk comes and rakes the same tree, leaving his on top of it,
Mhm.
you can't do that. So you can go towards his territorial aspect just by the
Yes.
sound. It's not going to help.
Yeah.
So if you're just in the area where he scraped, man, I mean, wherever he was digging on that tree, man, you're in there and it's that territorial time and he hears that. Yeah, then that's how that's going to do. It doesn't, I'm with Chab. It doesn't have to be the same tree. Just got to be in the area to piss him off. So
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just depends too. A lot of times depends on the region that you're hunting. A lot of these bulls travel a long ways between wherever their territory is, right? So, I mean, the best thing you can do is get him to make a sound. And when you get him to make a sound, then you can get in there in his house and go to work.
The problem with raking too, especially if you're solo, is that bull, he's going to hear that rake. He's not going to move very far to respond in kind, right? He's going to start raking. Typically, he's going to be frontal behind something and raking. So if you do that, you're going to have to stop your raking. You're going to have to pay attention and listen, and you're going to have to move in. If you sit there and you think that you're going to have a rake battle like guys want to have, bugle chuckle battles, it's just going to put you in a spot to where he's going to get tired of raking and he's going to turn around and walk away. So just kind of remember that.
And you got to remember too that whole territorial thing is during a specific time period as well, right? It's that. I mean, they've started rubbing off all that velvet, and they're still in their lair basically before they've moved out to go after those cows, and they're being territorial to that area, especially those big boys there. And I mean, it can still happen when they have cows if they get to that space there, but I find that there's more of a gap in that one where that guy's kind of owning where his little lair is right there. So
Yeah.
Or you get that big old pushed out bull, right? That bull that's on his decline past that breeding age. those Joe Giglia type senior bulls. And they'll do that,
Oh
right?
my
Is
God.
they'll basically quarantine themselves off in that area. And I've experienced that in Colorado, and in Oregon too. So
I can see what kind of night this is going to be, man.
Manano told me.
He's
Manano
sweating
told me it
already.
was unleashed, man.
Yeah, unleashed you.
Joe
Oh
is
my God.
sweating, bro.
Fantastic, man. Chris.
RC, you got my back, right, bro?
No,
No,
All the
he's laughing.
time. All the time.
There we go. Yeah.
Chris, I appreciate the question, man. It was a really good question. Big thing is get in the middle of there and make that bull sound off. And when you're close to him, he's gonna respond to it. And I've seen Joe. We've had bulls hang up that want to talk and this, that, and the other, and they just hung up. And as soon as he goes and hits a tree, it's over with. Here they come. I mean, they come barreling in there because they know that they're displaying for a hot cow. We got a little glunking going on, and I mean, it can literally be one of the best things you can do, but it also can be one of the worst things you can do at times. So it depends, like Joe said, depends really on the scenario. But anytime you can get him to be challenged, I mean, he's going to come see what's up. That's for sure. Guy, lead us into this next
All right,
question.
out of Raywick, Kentucky, we got Jason Hardesty. Hey guys, recently found your podcast and been binging. Thank you for all the info you provide. I hear a lot about what you do when you find elk as far as calling. What I don't hear a lot about is finding elk. Let's say I have spots picked out from e-scouting. I arrive and go to check those areas out. What am I looking for? When do I throw out the cow sounds? Am I constantly just walking and throwing out throwing the sounds out? Do I wait till I find some signs? Should I periodically let out a bugle? I believe Travis talking about the cow and calf sounds and how effective they are. But a few minutes later mentioned something to the effect that if you will blow all the elk out, if you start making the cow mew, has me scratching my head. Thank you guys for all the help you provided this new elk hunter.
There's a lot of
that's a big question.
Well,
Yeah,
here,
it's got a lot of
since I read it, I'll break it up, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go, Manano, why don't you take what
Yeah, I'm
what
gonna
is he
take the
looking
part.
for?
Well, I would say that he should be looking for sign first of all. As he did some e-scouting, he should be going to the woods trying to see some signs, and then he can go from there. And then he first of all he have to identify the wind. How is the wind playing? That's my first move, and then go for sign. Then he can start working on the calls. But first of all, I would check the wind, then signs, and lastly calls.
All right, thank you, Manano. RC, when do I throw out the cow sounds? Now? I drop in the woods?
Well, no, I kind of like to wait till if you see a few tracks and stuff. Again, it's very, very important when you're in there to make sure that you've got shooting lanes. You think like an elk. If I come into this scenario, which way am I going to come, and stuff
Right.
like that, and
Then
you can throw a cow call or whatever you need to. But I feel like once you've been into a herd, let's say, to speak of, then when you're walking, you can make like another herd walking beside them or trying to catch them or whatever. But I wouldn't call until I was definitely knew where I was at. And it's just like Manano says, make sure the wind's right, make sure everything's
your setup's right.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you hit that cow call, man, they could be on you like that.
Exactly.
I mean, it happens that way. I've hit one cow call. Yeah. I mean, the bull's on top of you. Literally can happen that fast.
That was kind of my point of saying now, right? I mean, assuming that this is good e-scouting, right? This is good e-scouting, and we've picked out those benches or those elk hot spots. We'll say
travel corridors,
right?
Yeah.
So assuming that's why I say now. Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, I think Travis was referring to the fact that if you get really close to a herd and you introduce a strange cow call, the lead cow
Yeah.
may not like that and just take off. So it might be better to start with a
Be quiet.
calf call or introduce it earlier before you get to that point.
Yeah. So we kind of answered, do I wait till I find some sign with Manano and RC? So Gil, should he periodically let out a location bugle?
You know, if I'm early in the morning, right? Early in the morning, I haven't heard anything. I'm in the base of a canyon. I got the wind right. Thermals are coming my way. Yeah, I'm gonna put out a little location bugle just to see who's gonna want to play today, right? And every now and then, I may do that on certain ridges. We come to a ridge top, woo, we will let out a little bugle, see what we get to stir up, right? But for me, you know, for me, I'm always a lover before I am a fighter. But so I'll usually go to a couple of calf and cow sounds before I do the location bugle, just so I don't freak any elk out that are close in proximity. The calf cow sounds are much more herd talk than a big gnarly bugle. I mean, that's the thing, is you don't want to be ripping off some big gnarly bugle on your location. It's just something super soft, and we'll get Joe to, give us one here in a little bit, so you guys will know what a location bugle is supposed to sound like. It's long and thought out, and it's just casting. It's kind of like when we're fishing, we're casting our lure out to see what's a topwater lure, to see what fish will come up there and take a look. So I do like to location bugle, but it's generally as I'm moving from ridge to ridge, right? Or in between ridge to ridge.
So Jojo, can you tie that all together, right? I mean, he's kind of spelled out his scenario. So, we jump out the truck, we got the e-scouting down, and then we're going in. So can you just put that together, tie everything the boys said in for Jason there?
Yeah, because I'm with Manano, man. If I'm going and hitting, just because you did e-scouting, you can do the greatest e-scouting in the world. And
Nothing.
Yeah. I really like to hunt scout or get out there a little bit and verify an area once I get boots on the ground. If you're in season, if it has started, the hunt has started, then I'm basically hunt scouting, and I'm actually in a little bit different mode than I would be once I had elk located, because that's what he's saying is he's got spots picked out and he arrives to check those out. What am I looking for, man? Your Manano was exact, and I tell you what, I'm not worrying that much about wind at that point. I mean, I'm gonna move so that I always have the wind in my favor. But really, sometimes I'm needing to cover stuff and check it out, and the wind's not in my favor, and sometimes I'll sacrifice that to come back through an area with the wind in my favor if I have to. Like if I know thermals are up and I'm up on the top of a ridge, I'm just going to rock the top of that ridge to get to a point where I might drop off and hit that, a little bit of the side with the wind correct on me. But man, I'm doing that. I'm running the ridge fingers. I'm running and I'm looking for those saddles or those crossovers or any kind of trails that those animals would have, and I'm looking for fresh track. I'm looking for fresh sign. I'm paying attention to my nose, paying attention to my ears, and I'm using my eyes like crazy, man, because what I'm trying to do is verify, are there elk? I'm just trying to locate if there's elk in the area. Once I locate them there, then I'm going to start finding them, man.
Slow down, yeah.
And especially, if you're on one of those ridges, and I love the ridges that run east-west, right? I really like that because I've got elk that are traveling from north side over to the south side, kind of back and forth. They'll get on top where it's a little bit benches, and I really like to hit that and look for, all right, where are they coming through? Where are the pinch points are? And I'll do the same thing for down in the bottom of those. Like, when I talk about my knuckles, I got my ridge tops up and I got, those drainages down below, and those elk will either work up those drainages, especially if they're dark and thick, right? They'll work up some
Black timber,
working up to another area or down to other areas. That's where you're going to find your main travel routes. And I don't cut out, man, when I'm driving on on the 2 tracks, I'm looking constantly for where elk are crossing there.
Yeah.
If I see a mud hole in a 2-track, we're off
Yeah,
on the
we're
road.
looking.
I'm stopping and checking it, man. So what I'm trying to do is verify where I got track. And once I get on that, then I start. If I'm really trying to verify an area, I might hit that track, but mostly I'm going to go and I'm going to continue to find those areas where I can identify are there elk in them by finding the sign. So I think Manano hit it right on. Now, as far as when am I cow calling? So me, the guy says, am I just cow calling? I don't ever, and this is something that I was going to talk about here a little later, and we'll get in more, but I really don't ever just single cow call except for first thing in the morning, especially early season when I'm putting out that single mew that could be a bull mew as well, and get those to come back to me. But I cow call all the time. But like RC said, when I do that, I'm always stopping someplace where I've got something on my
Good
background.
lens.
I know I can draw because, like Gil said, they can already be right off you, man. So I'm call casting, right? I'm throwing a call out that's close, that's quiet, and then I'm gonna go a little bit further, and then I, just like Gil said, I might reach out with a location bugle, man. So I'm kind of just that fly fisherman. I'm checking that close little thing, and then going out, and then I'm going farther. And to tie in what Chav said, that's all situational. You when I'm throwing out cow calls, it's a time of year when I am actually fishing for bulls that are they're traveling, they're advertising, they're looking, they're trying to find cows. It could be big bulls and aren't even looking yet. They're kind of staying off. So I'm doing those cow calls, and I'm always in multiples. They're not single. I don't believe that to me, it's not normal for just a single cow to be sounding off, because generally cows are with the herd, man.
Exactly.
Unless something
Exactly.
happened where they got pushed out from one by a
Yeah, and then there'll be a
cow.
lost cow that
Yeah,
they're
or a
talking
lost cow.
about.
If I'm
Yeah.
giving out lost cow sound, then cool.
Well,
So
that makes sense.
so
Lost
most of the
cow.
time when I'm going, I'm
Mhm.
sweetening the pot, man. I'm gonna be more than one cow, and I might have a calf with me. I might throw that in there as well. But I always like to portray of being more elk rather than that hoochie mama going through the mountain and doing
Yeah.
the same thing. So, and now, and what Trav is talking about there, man, is again, like Trav said, you come into a herd that's already, a bull that's already cowed up, and you get up there and you just throw out a cow mew. It's not the bull that is going to go pushing them out there. It's that friggin' lead cow, man.
Yeah.
So,
Well, especially if you're around a herd, a lot of times you just need to be quiet, watch the herd, right? And waltz up in there and kill that rascal, man. You may not even have to say a word. You just walk right in there, use your woodsman skills, get your wind right, and get in, but try to work your way in between the bull and the cows. But the minute you say something in and around that herd, you've just announced your presence.
right. And that's why sometimes I like to call into it. That's where the calf comes in, right?
Yes.
If it's a situation, again, everything's situational, man.
That's right.
Because even if I have a bull with cows, I got to think about what strategy am I going to use, man? Am I going to get in his bubble and make fight or flight? Am I going to try to maybe be that display bull that's a little bigger and pull the cows to me? Am I going to use a calf talk to go to that maternal instinct that is going to pull those cows and then possibly that bull? But you got to remember, you pull cows first, the bull's going to lag. So, there's always
a risk,
situational and variable in that. But it's a great question. I think a lot of people like, well, when do I throw out cow sounds? Dude, I'm throwing them out all the time, and most of the time, if I've thrown something out, I wait a little bit, as just like a cow would. I'm not going to be constantly throwing it out. I'm going to kind of give those little traveling herd sounds, as I'm moving, just like they would communicate, right? So,
great question.
Can I add to it real quick? So we, in that, between Gil and Joe, we talked about, you're in the mix of the herd. If you're that close to the herd and you got eyes on animals, you need to pay attention to what they're doing as you're calling, right?
Definitely.
Right. If you don't do that, You're right.
What is
There-
the atmosphere, man?
Yes,
Yeah.
right. You
What's
gotta
their
you gotta
temperature?
pay attention to the room you're in.
You
If you don't
gotta
pay
read
attention
the
to
room.
if you don't pay attention to that room, you're gonna be in trouble. If you're just sitting there calling, you're
Yep.
gonna alert something. Something's gonna be off. It's not very elky just to sit there with no response and call. So read your room, pay attention to that, and respond to their response.
Yeah, I
Know
thought-
what they're
Now-
saying too. Know what they're this is where you really got to learn how to speak the language and understand the language of what the herd's saying,
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I just, and we'll talk more on that, but I thought Manano, man, did a great job at saying, he's going to, the wind is always something we think about. But you got to think about,
Is it?
Read the sign.
well,
I mean,
Could be.
it becomes a natural.
it's
right?
a natural element for us.
Right. So it's you hit the woods and you're like, okay, there it is. And you're constantly feeling the
Okay.
wind. So you understand where you're at in that.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it's as conscious as we think it is.
Well-
and I'm glad Manano pointed that out because I
Yes.
take it for granted all the time.
Right.
I have hunters that, I'm guiding them and I'm going with the wind at our back and they're like,
What in the world? Yeah.
why are we going with the wind at our back? And I'm like,
We're
over
gonna
there.
turn and hunt this area coming
Yeah.
back. man.
just be patient because
Yeah.
I really know how I want to go through the area
Mhm.
Yeah.
to give me a better shot at it than trying to approach it here where the wind's going to because wind
Be
is
wrong for it.
interesting in the mountains, man. It can seem one way on the top and you drop off on the side and
Totally
it's doing
different.
something completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
because those corridors bend the wind.
They do. Yep.
They do. Those fingers will bend the wind. You got an updraft or whatever. It's just different.
That's one of the things that frustrates me to a point with the wind conversations, right? Is because you got your thermals, right? You're up and down. Then you got your prevailing wind, and then you got your aerodynamics because of the landscape or the terrain features, right? And if you're in a open or closed canopy or a spotty canopy, the wind's going to change. You hit sunlight, that wind is going to be totally different. It could be 12 feet away from you. So that's I actually have that written down for part of, I'm giving you a heads up, JoJo.
Cool. Fantastic question, Jason. Keep it locked down back in Kentucky, man. We hear you guys are growing some big bulls over there. So maybe one day we can come over there and draw a tag in Kentucky and come hunt some of them Blue Ridge bulls that y'all got for sure.
$10.
Guys, you know what time it is. It's time for our Elk Bros shout out. This is a shout out to a few followers in our few cities with the most listeners topping our charts this week.
Okay, so this is the one time I get to join into the show, right? Okay. Because y'all, first what we're going to do is we're going to go to our spin a winner wheel and see which of our reviewers is going to win one of our newest ElkBros products.
Wow, the
I
solo.
can't even see it good in there. Look at that sweet thing.
Yep. It's going to be our soloist grunt tube. So, and for those people who are listening, if you're wondering what this is all about, for folks that leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or give us a comment on YouTube channel, and they have to include their name and where they're from, we're placing their names in our ElkBros Spin a Winner wheel and spinning for a winner. And usually this is for a Wapiti River call. And yes, I have not forgot you. Our last winner that one big, he said, winner, chicken dinner. He's got one coming, but we're totally back ordered right now. But usually it's for a Wapiti River and signature ElkBros diaphragm call. But tonight, the lucky winner will be receiving one of the secrets to closing the deal success, y'all. And I truly believe it's our soloist grunt too. So y'all, let me share this out. And
Sweet.
Hey Joe, is this the first tube that we're giving away?
yes.
All right, I'm gonna throw in, because it's the first one, I'm gonna throw in a Western Fly pack cover.
Oh, wow, dude.
Howdy.
Wow.
Wow, man. So I'm going to take this to full screen. Can you boys see that real good?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
If
All
you
right.
guys ain't heard the Western Contours podcast, you better ask somebody.
I
Don't
think
talk
we
to
had
me.
quite a few people that sent in reviews, which were so awesome, man. A lot of cool comments and some really, really kind, cool reviews. So going to click on it. Here we go.
You got the drum roll.
I got the drum roll now.
Who will it
I see
be?
a lot of familiar names in there.
Oh. Scott Jinks, Jackson, Montana.
All right. Scott Jinks,
Scott
Jackson, Montana.
Scott, when you listen to the show, you're going to have to go on, send me an email to joe@elkbros.com. And
Make sure you follow Western Fly Covers on Instagram. I ain't sending you nothing. Congrats, Scott.
Congrats, man. That's awesome.
All right, this top listening city is a commuter town west of Portland, Oregon. It was voted Portland's coolest suburb by Thrillist magazine. The native branch of the Tahltan branch of the Kalapuya Indians inhabited the area until 1840. The name came from a grove of oak trees that now are part of the Pacific University campus, Forest Grove, Oregon.
Yeah.
Hey, who assigned? Did Joe assign that to me?
No.
I was like, how did that not get to Manano?
Oh yeah.
I was like, look at that. That's what I get for not reading it earlier.
That's tough.
That's
He assigned all the difficult ones.
That sounded like your magazine guy, man. Thrillist magazine, bro.
Thrillist?
Yeah.
I was like, where the heck
magazine.
Actually, is it Thrillist or is it Thrill List and it's just not separated?
Yeah.
It's together.
Magazine.
Thrillist magazine.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's see what Thrillist has in it.
Dig it.
We're unleashed, so I'm gonna have to do this.
Well, yeah, because I'm sorry, guy. It was Nudist magazine.
Oh, I ain't Googling that. I don't want none of that on my feed.
That'll bring up all kinds of stuff, baby.
Yeah, stuff I don't want to see.
no.
Guys, heading back to the Midwest, our next top listening city was established as a summer resort destination that evolved into a retirement community located in the north central Arkansas portion on the Missouri state line. The town has 7 lakes within the city limits. 4 are designated all sports lakes, while the other 3 are no wake and fishing lakes. All the lakes are private, as only community members and guests are permitted to use them in none other than Bella Vista, Arkansas.
Bella Vista.
Yep.
Bella Vista.
Really neat little town.
I bet Gil, even though you're not supposed to be on one of those lakes, I bet Gil was in there sneaking.
Yeah.
I never
I guess you fish already.
fished there, but I've been through there. Yeah, I
I've
spent
been
a lot
through
of
there.
time in Arkansas, so
It's
the last
beautiful through
4
there.
years.
Oh, up
state,
next. Up next, this North Dakota city sits on the Minnesota border and is home to Greenway, a system of waterfront parks and trails. The area was formed by glaciers and is prone to constant flooding. It is one of the flattest regions in the world due to the glacier carving. Grand Park,
Glacial. You're good.
glacier carving. Grand Park, North Dakota.
North Dakota.
Glacier.
Glacier.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, this final city is known as the Christmas tree capital of the world. The company of Tacoma, Washington operates a 10,000 acre plantation of Christmas trees. In August of 1992, the town was struck by a half-mile wide F3 tornado that killed 2 people, injured 30, and caused over $5 million in damages. Wow. And that's in Watoma, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Very
Wow.
cool, man.
Well, Joe, our main content that's coming up this is part 4 of our Elk Calling Geminar series in how to practice and improve your elk calling skills, right? We're going to jump right in here in the middle with you. And, you've been elk hunting now for over 40 seasons and, hundreds of bulls under your belt. I don't know how many hundreds more you've called in for other people. And you've got a lot of experience, and we've had some fantastic elk hunters and elk callers on, but I've never hunted with those guys. I've hunted with you the last 14 years. You're one of the most special people in my life, but one of the things that you do better than anybody is when you call, you finish, brother. Right. And I don't think necessarily people understand that there is a difference between calling and finishing. What I want to know from you is, how did you go from not being able to make a sound right early on in your career to what kind of discipline it took for you to use? Did you start out with a single reed, or did you start out with a diaphragm call? I really want you to go back to your roots, man, and dive into that and tell us, as a young man, you starting out elk hunting, because you starting out elk hunting, it wasn't necessarily because you wanted to kill a bull, it's because you wanted to eat elk meat, man.
I wanted to
right?
eat.
And feed
Yeah.
your family. You know what I'm saying? So I want guys to understand that Joe wasn't always just hunting horns. He was feeding his family, right? And it was super important for him to do that on his own. So, Joe, what age did you start elk hunting? You're
I think I
93
was
now,
19.
so
I think I was 19, dude, when I
19 years old, dude.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
And we're what, 60 now?
Yeah, 61 now. Yeah.
There we go, 61. Gotcha.
Yeah, so actually I think it was probably, I was 19 when I first came to Vegas over there. I was probably 20 the first year that I actually went out, and I actually killed a cow elk my first year up in the Pecos Wilderness up there, and I would have probably never done that except for guys in my bow hunting club. I was a really good shot, and they were like, "Man, have you gone elk hunting? Why don't you tag along with us?" And that was the first opportunity, and they took me up there and messed me up for life, man.
And a star was born.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's been a heck of a journey. But from that first time, I mean, I had no clue what I was doing other than I had a hunting skill set, right? And I basically knew that, critters were going to, if they were in their bed, which all animals do. All animals lay up in bed, man. And then all animals get up to go eat something. And I just knew that, those critters that were in the area were going to come down to the best places in that, and happen to be in that wilderness, to be able to find feed. And I found, like I said earlier, I found a trail that funneled through the bottom of the thick, that funneled out into a real, not a huge meadow, but a nice little bench type meadow, towards the bottom, had water in it. And I had already had a couple deer that come in there. I was like, man, if deer are using this is a good feed place. So I just set up in the evening and waited, and sure enough, I had a cow elk came stepping out, man. It's just like I thought she would down that trail. I mean, sure, people might say that that's kind of sloppy lucky, but I think you take your skill sets and you make deductions with what you have to be able to put yourself in position for things to happen, right?
Yeah, and make your own luck.
Yeah, you got to
Yeah,
make
there
your
you
own luck.
go.
You just create it, right? If we're not out there, if we're not making the decisions, if we're not putting ourselves in positions, yeah, an elk popped out there, but had I not done that, I wouldn't have been in the right place. And what was, yeah, I got my first cow elk there, but I think the thing that I was most proud of that, and this kind of shows a lesson that I tell people about persistence, about staying motivated, staying positive, and whatever hits us in life, we make lemonade out of lemons. Well, that cow elk walks out. I take one of my arrows, one of my old double X75s. At that time, I had a satellite broadhead on there. They were the cheapest ones that you could find out of Walmart at the time. Not the cheapest ones, probably the only ones you could find at Walmart at the time. Single body, light aluminum. But this cow walks out. I go to knock the arrow, and again, I shoot fingers, instinctive. I shoot a compound at this time forever until the last 2 years. And my setup is real simple. I just had on the side of the bow, had one stick-on arrow rest there, a little flipper rest, and I go to put my arrow on, and there's no arrow rest. It's done been ripped off, right? So, well, I've shot long bows, I've shot recurves that had shelves on it. So I just set my finger up there and drew across on my finger just like it was the rest, and shot that cow. I think it was 35, 40 yards, and she didn't go in the trees another 20, and she healed up in there. And and that was the first one down. But when you ask about like how did I start with the sounds, I didn't,
Right.
I never heard an elk make a sound on that hunt.
Yeah.
Never did, right?
Yeah.
And then my next year hunting, I was hunting in an area, and that's when I first started hearing the elk, right? And that was the first time. I mean, when I got on that cow elk, the one thing that really hit me was her sweet smell, man. She just had this sweet licorice type smell on her that was very distinct. And when I found, then I had been finding urine that I didn't know, I mean, had that type of smell there. And I start putting together all these pieces, and that next year that I'm hunting, I'm out there and I'm hearing these elk making these noises and stuff. And I read Outdoor Magazine. It had Wayne Carlton in it and Larry D. Jones talking about them hunting elk and calling in elk. And we didn't have the internet at the time, if you didn't find it on a TV channel or know somebody. But I found somebody in our club that had a videotape that one of them guys had done, and got a chance to hear that. And I was using Quaker Boy turkey calls to call turkeys. And these guys said they could do elk, so I just started just kind of like a key run. You get that that high pitch on there, and what I started doing was in the woods, I'm listening to the elk and I'm actually trying to just reproduce what those guys are doing. I think the elk were my best teacher. So that's where I started with it was, man.
So were you using turkey calls when you first started out to try to make
absolutely.
elk sounds?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, it's a diaphragm call, man.
Yeah, for sure.
I could take that same diaphragm call. I can take this elk one.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and
Yeah.
we make all kinds of noises with that diaphragm, and so I was always playing with the diaphragm to do noises. One thing as a kid, I love noises like mourning doves, things like that, owls that we do, different things, and you learn to mimic it. So that was my first thing, was just mimicking.
When did you feel pretty confident that, so you're starting off in your elk hunting career, and
Right.
so you started, like you said, you had a good hunting skill set. So that helped you kill your first elk. When did you start feeling like you were understanding the sounds the elk were making and you were able to duplicate that well and then start calling bulls in for yourself?
Well, what's funny about that, Gil, is that I when I first started, I wasn't really my skill set that first year. So I'm like 21 after killing that cow, and I'm up there hunting. My whole thing then was I connected the smell from the year before, right?
Sure.
So the way I was getting into elk was I was walking crosswind through areas that I figured would be their bedding areas, right? Again, the first time I waited for them in their feed to come from their bed, and I was like, man, I can't waste all day doing. I can't sit, dude. I just don't do good sitting.
No, he can.
Yeah. He ain't setting in no blind.
Yeah.
No.
So I start working through areas and crosswind till I caught that wind, and then I start hunting into the wind. And as I did that, I started hearing these noises, man. The first time I heard it, I thought it was birds chirping. And you hear that noise sound like bird chirping out there, and I keep going, following that scent, and I get into it, and man, I see the butt of these cows on there, and they're making these bird chirping noises. And so I just started imitating that. And dude, I started imitating that, and they put their head up, right? They're looking my way, just like
Right
that.
in the room.
Yeah. And they're like, And, I started actually bringing cows to me before I started bringing bulls to me. And then I see the bull back on the backside there, and it's like, okay, this will work. So I actually killed my first bull bringing in cows to me. That was the whole technique that I used. And
There you go.
And what I found out then was, as I start reading more articles and more things and being in the woods more, and not just during September,
Yeah.
but me and Chad would go out there and we'd be playing in October,
Hunt deer.
November. We'd be playing,
Deer.
early in the summer in June, July, and stuff like that, and get out there playing with those cow calls. And I would have cows come into me off of just me doing that. I bring a herd into me just by acting, trying to mimic what that herd was doing. So I think I started doing scenario calling way before I even knew what I was doing, right?
Sure.
And most of it was cow based. And I tell you, man, by being able to sound like a group of cows, whether it's 3, 5 with a calf with it, or then trying to mimic like a herd. Next thing I know, I got bulls coming into me to check it out, depending on the time of year, and I'm like, man, this is cool. This will work. Again, I didn't have like I've never been a rich person, and we never, I mean, at that time, I don't even think there was like dish. There was like cable TV started coming out after antenna, right? And then if you had it, you could get some of these shows every now and then that would have stuff on there, but there just wasn't those resources. Our resource had to be the animals at that time. So I
Makes
think
sense.
that's when I first found out. And every year of that, I think my confidence in your question came when I had been doing this and I started mimicking the bulls too, right? And me and Chav were on a hunt in an area and did the same thing. I worked and I started to know the area I was hunting. We were getting tags every year. It wasn't hard. In fact, when we first started hunting elk, it wasn't a lottery. You could go and buy your elk, deer, bear, and
Wow.
turkey for like 34
Stone
bucks.
tablets.
$34.
Yeah, for like 34 bucks. Right? You remember that, RC?
Good old days.
Oh yeah, good old days.
Yeah. So we would get, we could have all the tags and go out there and hunt, and we'd hunt everything, man, and try to fill up the freezer. But we're out there, and Chav and I are split up. We've gotten into a group of cows with the bull, and this bull is chuckling. He's like doing this invitation chuckle, and so I start trying to mimic his chuckle. Every time he would do something, I would do it right back to him. And then he'd get pissed and he'd do it back to me just like that. And we were just going back and forth like that and end up bringing him in. I shoot him at about 35 yards and he goes and he takes off. And then me and Chav have a signal. We just kind of like, I do a crow call when I want him to come find me. And Chav does this funny little bick, bick, bick noise in the woods, so I can identify where he's at. And
Do it, Chav. Let's hear it.
Yeah.
so... Yeah.
There you go.
So I would crow
Mountain
call
lions
him.
make that sound too.
I crow call him into me and I go, dude, did you see that bull? And he's like, what bull? I was like, you didn't hear that chuckling going on back and forth? He's like, I thought that was you the whole time. So,
Yeah. Imitated it perfectly.
Yeah.
yes, I think that's when Chav said that. I think that was the first time that I started to realize that I had that knack for that realism, man.
Chav, you got to. I know you've hunted with him. You've been his confidant and best friend for over 40 seasons. So I'm sure to lead off this questioning, you probably got a couple of good poignant questions to ask him.
Well, I know one thing for sure is you can give Joe any call, even Luis's call that's all slobbery and stuff, and he'll still make excellent calls. And going back to that one story about the bull chuckling, to me it sounded like Joe, and then he moved over a little bit more, and it was actually two different Joe and a bull. But he was able to imitate it perfectly. And I know during the course of all those years, he's evolved and gotten better and better and even come up with stuff that people never heard of. But he's an expert at it, really. But I know there's some listeners out there that want to know, where do I start? How do I even pick a call? What would you suggest to the beginner when they're doing that? Because I know a lot of people that are listening want some tips. Even people who have been calling for a couple of years really don't know what they're doing. So, what calls would you recommend to start off? and perfect, and then advance till you get better at
Go to www.elkbros.com. No, I'm just kidding. Shameless
No,
plug.
I think that's a great question.
I think just like my natural progression, my natural progression was cow calls first. And I honestly believe that a person can go out with solid cow calling. And if you look, if you can do a cow call, if you can just make that noise, then you can make any cow sound there is. And that's what I try to tell people. If I can make a cow call just like that, I can shorten it for a chirp. I can get that lost. I can do a regathering. I can add voice inflection. Get those demanding mews inside there. I can do just about anything. And really, if I can cow call, I can bugle, because to me, bugling
Elongated.
is easier than cow calling. To me, it's just. But I think if you really work on taking that and start with a single light latex. Our sugar, our cow call, the sugar, is a single latex that is so easy out of the box. But I'm not even going to tell you to get this one. I'm going to tell you, go get a medium reed from Native by Carlton. Go get one from Phelps. Go get one from our
grinder.
yeah. I mean,
Our grinder's a good one.
but it's not a medium, right? Is what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
what I'm saying, medium frame. I'm talking medium.
Oh, I got you.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, whatever, and somebody else showed me another one the other day out there, but, what we started out with was basically one that we had to tune, right?
Yeah, Primos.
Primos, yeah, with that pallet plate on it. And look, y'all, make sure it has a pallet dome on it. I think it's going to make life so much easier for you when you do that. And look, I just was working with somebody the other day that when I started doing the lesson with them, they finally realized that they had this in their mouth the wrong way.
Backwards.
Upside down or what?
Backwards.
Yeah, had it backwards and had it I think even like upside down, wasn't even doing it right. And I had another, well, last year we had one of our people that was actually biting on it and getting the latex between their lips on the front to make it. So yeah, you're just going to take that.
Turn it backwards, Gil. Do it backwards.
Oh, do it backwards.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Upside down, I'm not sure, but
Won't make a sound.
They weren't getting a sound. So what they were doing was they were like, I can't use a diaphragm call because I can't get a sound out of it. And then I started doing a lesson with them, on putting it in and showing how that was, and just to do push. I tell everybody, if you want to get your tongue the right position, push.
Yeah, push.
It's going to lower that tip of that tongue. It's going to drop that tongue. And I love the O'Shea. This is what I call O'Shea.
The O'Shea.
It's going to drop the tongue, and it's going to put the middle of that tongue into that latex, right? So, get started. Just make the sound. And then, when you make that sound, you're just going to start working with that to try to get different tones with it. And tones come from two different places. They come from...
I think that's really important, Joe, because I have seen bulls making crazy sound, like pretty average sound, nothing like any complicated bugle, so pretty basic. So somebody that's able to do some decent cow call will be in a decent shape.
Another thing I see that young callers do with their diaphragms is they want to try to put that diaphragm as far back as they can, and that's That's never, I run that thing almost up to my eye teeth, and then I start pushing it back to find the sweet spot, because there'll be a sweet spot for that diaphragm in your mouth, right? And when you find it, then you'll go, oh, this diaphragm, you need to push a little further, or you need to push a little back, or you need a little more tongue pressure. But when you're starting out with the real light latex, man, I like to push it forward, and then just like Joe says, make the sound push, you know. Try to make it make any kind of cat sound you can make, man. That's important. And then learning how to drop off of the note, that's another thing, right?
Well, and here's something else you can do, man. If you want to find out which one's going to fit in your mouth a little, because like I said, I tell people to go to that medium frame because I know most likely to be able to do that. But I'm telling you, if you can start out with, and this is just like a turkey call, it's the same width of the frame like that. Our sugar here fits. It's going to be a little bit lower. You're not going to be able to bring it as far forward because your palate's not going to let you, and you're going to get, you're going to be able to get those sounds out. And if you are with that, then you're going to be able to handle that latex. And I've taken little kids, and you've been with me, Guy, when we were at MAF. We were Mountain Archery Fest up there. People that had never called, kids that have come up, at that time we only had the grinder, get that in there, and within 10 minutes, right, we're putting stuff out, and kids are starting to really do a good job, and adults. We just gave.
I gave my son, who's never blown a diaphragm call, even for a turkey, I gave it to him, and in 35 minutes, he was knocking my socks off with cow calls, man. Right. But I mean, look, you just got to put time in behind the call, Right. And the lighter latexes and the medium frames, Joe's right. They seem to fit everybody better starting out.
Well, and even people that should have a wider frame in their mouth, they're going to be able to do that. But the problem, what happens with people that do that, they end up with that call higher and a little more forward because their palate allows that, but they can still make sounds with it and do that efficiently. But
that's what makes the Wapiti River one so nice with the cuts, the slices, because it seals properly and everything,
And look, you can do that with any call. If you find that you're getting a crease, all you gotta do is get scissors and notch it out. Look, if people try ours and they like it, that's great. But get what works for you.
For you, that's right.
And what you have confidence in. And I think that's the most important thing with that. So, but make sure it's single latex, that it's got a light, that it's an easy blower out of the box, and work with that. And then once you get that and you get that feel for it, then you get a little bit thicker latex, and you can then start learning how to get, those other sounds with it, because they are going to sound a little different. When I do, my light sugar. Now listen to the grinder. I mean, it's got that a little bit more mature, deeper tone
voice,
to it, right?
Just a different voice.
Yeah.
Like a different animal.
A little different latex with it. Right? Yeah.
That's
fantastic.
Fantastic.
Just as a follow-up question, that was for the beginners. What about the guys who've been at it for a while? What are your go-to calls?
Grinders tuning in, thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Elk Hunting Podcast. Our goal is to share our knowledge and help you flatten that learning curve so that you too can have some of the very same incredible experiences that have given all of us here at ElkBros a lifetime of memories. If you like what you hear or see, you can get all of this information plus so much more from our Base Camp Elk Hunting Training Camp, the first in a series of online courses from our Blue Collar Elk Academy. Our Base Camp Training Camp allows me to use my coaching style and share almost 40 years of elk hunting experiences successfully hunting elk on public lands, as well as over 20 years guiding hunters of all ages and experience levels. This course will be like nothing you have ever experienced in concept and structure, using success-based coaching techniques that will elevate your confidence and skill sets. Our camp will prepare you specifically from that final moment most in your control, those final minutes or seconds the elk is in front of you, backwards through each step and level, allowing you to see, visualize, understand, and relate every coaching point to what lies ahead, the next step, the next thought process, the next success. Because y'all, you've already been there. You know what it looks like. By tapping my 30 years of teaching and coaching experience, our camps are developed considering multiple learning modes with text, visuals, audio, as well as video. And Base Camp will benefit those new to elk hunting all the way to the 10 to 15 year vet. So if you are looking for that one thing to help you fill that tag this year, invest in the most important piece of equipment there is, you and your elk hunting knowledge. You can find the Blue Collar Elk Hunting Academy and the Base Camp Training Camp at ElkBros.com. That's ElkBros.com. Keep dreaming of the screaming, believing in achieving, and most of all, keep grinding. I don't think it's so much calls as combining calls. I think that's the thing. I think it's painting the picture and being able to utilize your different call sets as you get more advanced to be able to make things happen for you. I think that's the key. Then I think early on, you just want to focus on what you're good at, right? Utilize
Play to
what
your
you're good
strengths.
at and make things happen with that. Look, I've taken everything that I've done, the way I've faced calling elk is, and this is the way if I was to teach people, is that I face it like a coach. I do tape and research, right? It's just like whenever we're going to go play a game, man, I get a tape on the opponent. I watch how they move. I watch the different things that they do. I learn their plays, and then I start to go off of that. Then I'm going to drill. Then I'm going to do drills from that. So if I'm doing drills and then I'm doing those cow calls, I'm adding that voice inflection, and I'm doing those different ones. So I'm just basic.
Yeah.
And then I want. So I'm going to add the different things in with that, right? And try to play with it. Even doing things like closing my mouth a little. Now, a big mistake people make is when they're trying to learn to call or they're trying to make different tones, they often try to use their lips in a way to control those tones.
There's the cat.
There's that kitty cat. Where's
There's
Louise?
that kitty cat.
And you can use your lips to to make it a little lower sound, a little different. You can throw it to different sides like that. So I work on stuff like that. And, I'm going to play and do those drills. I just want to do my basic drill, and then I'm adding voice. And then I want to play with length. And then I want to play with tone intensity. Let me tell you what, if you want to practice early morning cow call when something is in close, get in a quiet, silent room and cow call. Because most of the time we're someplace where there's a lot of noise and we just blow things out and we think, that's the cow call we want. Not necessarily. Okay. So I do that. I go tape, I do drill, and then I start doing my plays and strategy. And that's when I start doing those different things like, okay, let's just take raking, for example. I watch bulls rake. And then I try to mimic. What are they using? Are they using their horns on the side of the tree? Are they using their daggers on the front of the tree? Are they up there hitting inside the branches? I watch it and I find a raking scenario that I like and I get that in my head. And then when I go out there, I envision that same thing when I'm doing it. Or if I hear another bull that is thrashing something, I will friggin' mimic that dude the way he's doing it, right? Yeah. So, and I guess that's kind of the way that I would go for the more advanced guys.
Yeah, and for the more advanced guys, man, keep working with different calls, man. Keep working with the things that make you better, Keep understanding the language. Don't stop. Get around as many elk herds as you can get around, man. It helped me so much being with these guys, being able to go get around elk and learn. I mean, watching a herd as I call, for hours, man.
Watch
You
how
know,
their
just
behaviors are.
yeah,
Exactly.
listening to them, right?
Yeah.
That's how you become more advanced, is
Yeah.
listening to them and understanding the language.
Well,
So
that goes
me-
back to what Joe said 3 or 4 times in terms of that mimicry, right?
Yes.
And people talk about, well, you got to know the language. Mimicking isn't the thing. Well, to start off, yes, it is. You do as much mimicking as you can so you become so that
One
you
of them.
grasp the flow of the
Yeah.
language and the different sounds. When you hear a bark at you to a chuckle, you want to be able to reproduce that. Because when I have a bull that bark chuckles at me, I bark chuckle right back at that son of a gun, right?
Sure.
So, keep listening, watch those videos, learn, keep practicing to reproduce what you're seeing there. All right.
Yeah, for sure. Check out more elk hunting content and get the Base Camp Academy. These guys there's so much about calling in there. So, Joe's one of the very best teachers I've ever been around. My style's a lot like his. We run and gun, and we make a lot of noise when we're in the woods, when we're around elk, RC Knox, I know you. This is a guy who gave Joe his first guide job, right?
Yes,
So at the end of the day, RC Knox has watched Joe Giglia transform from a young man to a senior elk hunter, and who's been around Joe for a very long time. So I'm going to turn it over to you, RC, and maybe you can bounce a couple questions off of Joe that we've not thought of or not hit yet.
Okay. I think we've already kind of hit it, but it was the old Joe. And I'm real curious, Joe, as to how you handle when you call in a hunter and what you do. Do you move off or do you confront the hunter? And let's say you did move off and you called him in the second time. And so you moved off again. And I'll be doggone, you called him in the third time. What? What is your strategy for being polite? Or, I mean, I guess my question is, do you answer him back? Do you play with him? Do you?
no.
No, I'm gonna tell you the
Try to
answer
call-
right away. He started making turkey calls right away.
I've done things like, stuff like that, or I start a turkey call, or just to let them know. And you know what? That doesn't bother the elk, man.
No,
Right.
no. That's right. That's right. Very right.
If I really
Yeah.
have somebody comes in and we're not in a situation we got a bull working, I'm everybody's buddy. I go out there and
Yeah.
I introduce myself, say hello, how's it going? How's it been going this morning?
Made
And
a lot of friends that way.
yeah,
Oh,
you make
yeah.
a lot of friends like that. And not only that, man, you get some intel from it. I guarantee if I called them in and they say, well, what's going on? And are you the only one here? And I'm like, no, there's 6 of us out here. Well,
Yeah.
most of those people,
We gotta move.
they hear there's 6 other hunters. They usually move out of the country. And I got news for
Country
you.
for us.
If you call them in twice, except for my buddies, I got a lot of dudes that hunt in the same country that I do, and if they see me in the area, they ain't going too far. So,
Yeah, they're gonna hang around.
Yeah, because pretty soon he's going to call something in pretty close
Yeah.
close to him. Yeah.
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
but no, I try to always be congenial out there. You can get some recon from other people. You can actually sometimes help them out if they're having difficulties. I
Yep.
mean, we've even done things where we've helped people be more successful out there. So,
I've been with Joe. We called a hunter and his son in, had a very nice conversation. We hadn't gone 150 yards. We hit another little call, and about 4 bulls tried to run us over. We literally had that guy walked out of sight. We walked 150 yards. Here these dumb bachelor group of bulls tried to run us over, and he had just come through that area.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me to have other hunters in the area. I've run into hunters and said, how, how's it going? They said, well, they're not talking. I haven't heard a bull all day. And I just came from over top
Par
the
for the
ridge
course.
where we just had a rut fest. And I mean, like Gil says, we've bumped into hunters, gone off of them and didn't go 100 and 150 yards and end up calling in an elk. I really don't worry about hunters in the woods. The other thing I'll try to do is I'll try to use more lower vocalizations, so I'm not calling those guys in unless we're doing something where we're doing our own,
Scenarios. Yeah.
we're trying to do our own party to bring things
Yeah.
something into us. Like if it's that time of year when things are screaming, they're converging. Let's say they're staying over on private property, and you feel like, man, I wish I could go over there. Well, man, make it so they wish they could come over
Come
here.
over here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
So,
There you go.
so we'll
Yeah.
do things like
So-
that, and it might not bring that herd bull, but there's some satellites that might think, hey, there's some lower hanging fruit. And then from that, then that's when some of those plays and strategies come in hand, right? Like
Yeah.
if I'm playing like a herd that's moving off and I have a bull that's coming into me, how do I get that bull to really commit or to come in the way he should, not be intimidated? Well, I do, I call it my cow pickle. I'll go right back at him with a lost cow, away from the herd that's been going the other way. And now he's like, wow, man, I can pick
Come
me
on,
up
Mama.
one, right?
Yeah.
So there's different things that we can use like that. So that's some of the things that I do.
Okay. The other
Awesome.
question I had is, there's three of us. Okay. And we're out, and all of a sudden we've got a bull that's answered us, right? So we split up. We got the collar on that takes the center and pulls out and trying to pull him between the two shooters, right?
Right.
So now I guess my question is how do you get RC up there? He's one of the shooters, and all of a sudden he gets his call out and he goes, "Ah!"
It happens.
I'm going to choke the hell out of RC.
And you're going, we're not going to get this bull.
Yeah.
So how do you politely tell RC
Manage
to
expectations.
shut up?
He would throw a rock.
You throw a rock at you?
Yeah.
I wondered what he would do. Yeah, okay. Or would he shoot at you with an arrow?
So let's take
With
this
you the point.
back to how to practice. If we're trying to teach people how to practice on this, right? The
Right.
first thing is you got to know your role. And if you're up front, if we're doing a flying V, and I think that's what you were referring to,
Right.
RC,
Exactly.
so
Mhm.
it's just the opposite. So when we're doing a flying V, we've got two shooters out front and we got a caller in the back. Now it can be a power I formation where we're going up directly with the shooter, and then we're going to the downside wind with our second shooter. That's two of the setups. And look, y'all, if you want to practice, you need to practice those types of things. You need to tell them, okay, if we're doing the power I, if we're doing that right there, as soon as they see that, they know one person's going forward, the other one's going up and to the side, and they're getting in position right. And I see them get in position, and we practice this. We practice this out there. And a lot of times early on, we didn't practice it, and we learned from our mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to tell people is you can actually practice doing your setups and doing the calls. Now, here's the thing. Know your role. If you're up there as a shooter, you are a shooter. You are not a
Not
caller.
calling.
The only time you're going to call is for stopping an animal on a shot, or if you see that you got to be aggressive and make a move and move forward, then you're going to let me know that you're moving forward by giving me 3 cow calls. Now, by you doing 3 cow calls, now you've reestablished where those elk are, but you're moving forward after that, and I move forward, and I'm able to now recommit or reconvene what we were doing and try to pull that bull in. And I know you're moving up for a reason. Either you've seen or heard or something like that, and you're getting in a better position. So I'm definitely watching what my shooter's doing. And now my other person, if we're 2 on there and there's the other person on the side sees that shooter moving up, he might now, because that shooter's moved up, now become an additional caller back there as well, depending on what's happening. And we'll give signals to each other. We develop hand signals so we can communicate if we're not able. Like a big one, man, is when my shooter turns back and my shooter tells me I've got eyes on, right? And then he tells me cow call, all right? He can see what is affecting that animal and tell me what I need to give as part of the formula, right? Tells me, and he does this to me, I know that I need to bugle, right? And I am actually going to be bugling away, so I actually sound further back, all right, than what I am. So these are just little key things. Now, what we're talking about is y'all have heard 3 great callers already and 3 great instructors that talks about the different things that they do, that they practice. The things that I practice are more situational
based
and creating more of an environment. Yes, do I practice a cow call? Well, you've already learned how to do that, but let me take you a step forward on that. Even if you're a beginner, if this is your first time out there and now you're able to get out there, I never do, if I'm moving through the woods, and we had that question earlier, I'm never doing just a single cow call, right? If I'm moving through, I'm sounding like, I'm doing different ones, and usually my rhythm is, you know, I get like 3 different things in there, little chirp, or I'll get that calf cow type thing going on as I'm moving. And most of the time I'm doing it with my tube. And I'll show you, this is how you practice this. Watch. I do situational stuff through the tube, to the side, and I practice it. Let me tell you another thing that you got to practice. If you are using, and I believe in calling behind me, right? The reason I'm doing that is because and Gil talked about closing. I think I close better because I get less animals to hang up because I'm throwing calls behind me.
Yeah, they're in tight. Yeah.
I'm trying
to come in tight. They come in tight. Number 1, the area you hunt. Number 2, you're throwing calls behind you, so they feel like the animals are further behind you, so they're going to come in tighter.
But you got to practice that, dude. I mean,
Definitely.
You really honestly got to get, and the nice thing about this is when I'm calling, I've got that animal in front of me and I got eyes on them and I see them, maybe they heard another bull to the side, or they didn't peg me exactly. They knew in the area I'm in, but they didn't peg my position, start coming in. They start sauntering off to the side. Well, I'm going to turn my bugle and throw it in another direction, right? But now, if that bull's coming, and you practice this on the range, you practice having this in position, making a call, having that diaphragm in your mouth, pushing that tube down, drawing back and making your shot. I mean, that's what I mean by situational. You got to take,
Definitely.
don't want the first time you use a tube and get it out of the way to be when you're on an actual animal. You want to practice that ahead of time.
That's the juice. Definitely. The practice, the preparation, right? And being proactive in your practice and understanding that things are going to get chaotic when you're in that scenario, and you better have some things figured out and practiced that beforehand. And that's, a lot of people ain't understanding that, Joe, because they've never heard it. So this is really good stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of my question, Joe, because we take for granted that people already know how to call, and I would love to hear you like go to step by step or really basic stuff. How you do the accommodation in your mouth with the diaphragm in your tongue, like basic stuff.
Basic, as basic as you can get. You're going to take that diaphragm, you're going to get it and push it up into the roof of your mouth, okay? And not involve the lips. What I want to do is I just want to do things with my jaw.
Yeah, you
like
drop
that.
the jaw.
I
It's
drop, and I talk about jaw drop all the time, and all that's doing is controlling my tongue pressure for me, in which later on I don't have to drop my jaw because I learned how to control my tongue pressure. So all I want to do is basically get it in, say push, push, and when I get that push, push, and what I want you to do is play with the diaphragm. All right. So what I mean by play with the diaphragm is this: push. I'm pushing with my stomach. All right. What's that? What's wrong?
Blew my ear. You blew my eardrums out.
Oh.
That son of a bitch got loud, man.
I'm sorry, dude.
It's all
I'm
good.
trying to turn some of this stuff
No,
down.
it's all good.
Yeah. So I'm learning that I push from down,
Diaphragm.
not from the lungs.
From your
the
diaphragm.
That's real important to learn, because there's some of those calls that if I'm doing just a little quick chirp, I'm just doing it just real hard and quick with the stomach, or I just push, right? So most basic is get it up there and say push, all right? And now, once I get that tone, push, now I'm gonna drop the jaw.
yeah. Right.
All right. I just want to get that, no matter which diaphragm I put in, push. And I'm just dropping the jaw. And I'm not going to go, I don't want to go like that.
Right.
I want to just relax the jaw and let it go down. And you'll learn to get that flow. And don't worry, I see some people, they want to pound on this like they want to do this real hard pressure thing.
Shrill.
Yeah, no, just that's a more mature.
Easy peasy.
Yeah. So you get used to doing that, just that. Like you're slipping a boat into the water, man. Just like nice and relaxed when you do it. Not like you're jumping off a cliff. You're not jumping off the cliff.
Yeah.
Dropping the jaw. And then once you get that and you understand that, then you know to do the tongue. You don't need that much hard
Jaw drop.
drop. That is the most basic thing that I can tell people. Don't involve the lips. Don't get too hard with the pressure right away. Say that push, drop the jaw.
Would you encourage people that as they are learning how to make decent cow calls, this they they would start trying to practice the bugle right away? So or would you tell them like, okay, first of all learn how to make cow calls and then jump to the next step?
Yeah, for me, I think honestly, one is they're yin and yang of each other. A cow call is nothing but a bugle in reverse. So what I try to tell people is, once you're making those sounds, remember that the distance from your tongue to that latex is what causes that deeper vibration, or that higher vibration as you push forward. So what you want to do is, I really think if you want to do a bugle, just start out with that tongue away from it, and then add that pressure and roll that tongue forward a little bit right on it. So you get, as I push, and I feel like I can almost do it just think about flexing a muscle, like you're flexing your tongue just a little bit. So as I get that sound coming out, I'll try not to blow you out again here, but
I got you. Thank you for the warning.
As I'm doing, and I'll show you. I'm pushing from here.
Yeah.
Now, and you're like, well, that doesn't sound much like a bugle. The grunt tube, you hear
Makes a difference.
that, right? And the other stuff comes into it, man. And I tell you, you don't have to sound like a big bull. You don't have to just learn to get that sound going.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the difficulties, right? Is diaphragmatic breathing, and most people, because that's a unconscious thing, right? We're not used to it, so they immediately go to their lungs
Right.
when they're doing it. So I think what you're saying is really paying attention to it, and you'll see guys that stage call a lot, and they'll actually rest their hand on their diaphragm to pay attention to it, as they're getting ready to get up on stage. So you have to be really, really conscious of breathing with that diaphragm, because it's not something that we do consciously on demand.
Yeah.
Well, let me turn this.
Well, and elk come from their diaphragm anyway.
One
that
thing I
whole
tell people
sound
to do to
comes from-
learn to go from your diaphragm is to huff from your diaphragm.
Yeah.
So just keep your mouth open and push air, almost like you have something stuck in your throat and you're trying to get it off, Whenever you're going from your lungs, it's like, there's no depth to it. When you feel, and it's almost like you feel your stomach, breathe in and let your stomach go out big, and then you can push more from that stomach. You can compress it down to get those sounds, right? That's how you get that diaphragm feel in there. And then when you do that, you just make the sound. And you kind of make that siren noise,
Yeah.
So pushing with that diaphragm each time, just like somebody's hitting you in the stomach, okay?
Yeah.
And you get that diaphragm control there. Does that help out, guys? Man,
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, that's so.
Basic stuff.
Everybody we've had on, Joe, has they're world champion elk callers, but the juice is in learning how to practice, right? And so this is how you practice, right? This is how you've learned how to call and become, an expert caller. I've hunted around a lot of guys that are they're good elk hunters, but the calling is what really holds them back. And I'm not saying you got to be perfect, but you got to understand the scenario and the basis of calling.
And
right?
even when you're doing practice and you're doing practice things like diaphragm and trying to do some of these changes, you're going to have some things that squeal, man. I do it all the time, right? It's practice. And then when you get there and you start getting that better control and
rhythm,
and don't worry about risking sounding like, I love doing these kinds of. I love that. I call it little S mew that they do, like that little demanding, and I can actually add some voice to that, and it's kind of that's more of that more demand and stuff. I love doing and playing with things and listening to them doing the different, and that's way deeper than most people would do it. They're going most people would be in that range. Play with the different levels, play with the different lengths, play with the different tones, different age classes, because, your daughter does not sound like your wife. They have a different voice as they mature, right? Sure. So play with that stuff, enjoy playing with it, and risk sounding like other people can go, well, what is that? Well, that's a friggin' elk, buddy. That's what it is, man.
For sure.
Enjoy doing that, People ask me too, which are you worried about messing up out there in the woods? Well, look, let me tell you something. It used to be I would throw a call in, especially the primos early on, if it wasn't tuned right, with the palate plate. Sometimes a bad call would squeak out. I never end with a bad call. If I have one that I'm gonna follow it right up. If I get one that if you have one that squeaks out, follow it up right away with a better one. It will sound better because it's kind of like when you take a shot with the bow, the first shot's a little low, the next one's going to, you need to fix it a little bit. Same thing with tongue pressure in your calls. So if you put out a bad call, then follow it right away. Now, I want to hit some other things that you want to practice with, okay? I want to practice kneeling, draw, get on target, and cow call. Or grunt. And then taking my shot, all right? The other day, I talked to some of the guys about this, and we had a huge conversation on it because I had a guy that shot a shot without worrying about a diaphragm. Then he drew back and had to consciously think about now making a call, and his arrow spread on him because he did not stay within his shot, because just having to make that call got him distracted.
Took his focus
out of his process, right? And I really think that's critical. If you're going to practice your calling, and you got to, Gil talked about me closing. Yes, I can call, but I close. And that's because I work those types of things, man. I get back there, I get on my knees because I hunt a lot from my knees. I draw back, I'm on target, pop. And it's almost, I have followed Joel Turner on Instagram, and he's always talking about the process to people. And he has something where it's like, I don't know, he says like ready, set, or ready, and to me, when I pull back and I'm on that animal, as soon as I go, that's my ready.
Man.
I'm getting ready
Sending
to pop.
Yeah. I hunted with you a few years ago in 2019, and we dove off a ridge and had multiple bulls sounding off, had Manano on my shoulder with the A camera work for sure. And you said, run down there and kill that bull. So I took off running down the hill, right? But Joe's behind me pulling that bull. When the bull comes up, I got to be the one to stop him in the zone, right? Joe can see him a little bit, but not like I can see him.
Right.
He's around 60 yards away, 57, something like that. I see the bull clearing the trees. I'm like, I'm killing him right here. When I drew, I had to, that was it. And he stopped. He was like, man, where in the hell was that cow at, right? But as soon as he stopped, it was, as soon as I pulled back, poof,
that was quick.
Gone, dude.
That was
But it is how Joe finishes. I've been with him. He's taught us that, right? This juice right here, RC Knox was with me when I finished off of a cow call to get that bull stopped. The bull's leaving, right? We stop him with the cow call. He's at 50 some odd yards, poof, we send it. The finish is well in the calling scenario as in just the calling, right?
Yeah, I really think that's what separates out a lot of times. I think there's a lot of people get in great position, but they don't know how to finish. And my calling is a big part of that, but being able to integrate my calling into what I'm doing without losing focus or utilizing it as part of the focus is, I think, what helps on that.
What was hilarious in that scenario is Joe is such a great caller, and he's so locked in on that bull. There's actually another bull to our left, but Joe is so locked in on that bull. When I shoot him, he's not even excited. He comes walking down from above me like, what happened? He's like, what's going on? I'm like, he's down over there. Oh, wow. Okay. He's like, really cool, dude. He's like, oh my gosh, he was so locked in the scenario that he didn't even notice that I sent one, right? And Manano's like, oh yeah, mother, at the end of the day. Yeah, exactly. So it was Joe again, man, guys. He's so locked into the calling scenario. And look, we weren't done. There was another bull right there for us to go get. So Joe's like, okay, next, right? Again, it's part of that learning how to call, learning how to finish. I killed the largest bull I'd ever called, and I probably called in another 6 or 7 bulls. I called another one in for Chav, right? And we had some mix-ups, but once you guys knock one out and here they come, you just keep right on rolling, you know. There's Joe. Look at Joe.
I didn't have the audio.
You didn't play the audio.
about
That's
that
so
guy,
cool,
man.
dude.
That was so.
You're never gonna live that down, brother.
I know, dude.
I forgot about it until you said that.
Playing
That was so
Bonanno. Yeah.
It was hilarious.
Man, Manano was, I mean, that was such a cool hunt, man.
I was being man.
Definitely. Vintage Manano.
No, we couldn't use it on our video. And I mean, it was,
Well,
the excitement was awesome. And he's
Hey,
from
you
time to
can
time
now.
we
It's
should have
already-
some unleash
You
program.
can now.
You can now. It's already been exposed, and it wasn't Manano, it was you. So you can't get
Right.
any worse. You might as well release the video.
Right.
Together, I'll put it on my YouTube, and you know.
Oh, yeah.
From there.
well,
Joe, I know guys itching to ask this last question,
what you
man.
got, guy?
We're gonna lead him right into it.
So I got a few questions for you, and I want to touch on some things and get some finer points. But I really want to rewind to that first elk hunt. You know, you talked about not using the call, but I got to imagine that Unga Bunga was part of the language that the elk were talking. But so we can learn more about that hunt, can you give us the pin drop to the cave where you put the hieroglyphs so we could actually see
it? That teed up, baby.
Oh, look at pulling it out. Number one. Oh, man.
Number one, boy. We teed
look,
that up, boy.
I've been waiting since you said it, brother. Me and Gil been texting back and forth.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Guys, y'all got to know how much we love this dude, man. And he's not, I'm telling you, he's in pain right now and he's enduring this for all of you. It's been amazing juice, that's for sure. Guy, I know you probably got something else.
Yeah,
that
let me hit him real quick and then we'll wrap her. So Joe, one of your success points, right, of the mini, and you know, just from watching the woods last year, is you hold to what you know, right? And you're not looking for variants or anything like that. And I feel like that's part of, you know, call it the struggle nowadays, if you will, is that we're always looking for the next best thing. Oh,
Right.
It didn't work here, but let me keep moving on. And we don't find what works for us. So how big has that been for you in your elk hunting career, where it's like, hey, this is Joe Giglia and I'm sticking to Joe Giglia and I'm running this scenario, period, point blank.
Yeah, you know, and it's probably, I think my best thing is that I adapt to every time. It's, you know,
Each
one
scenario is
year
different.
to the next, it can be a different thing that pushes the button. And once you start figuring out what pushes a bull's button, you know, then that's what you're going to tap on, man. It's the same thing. You know, I was in a football game coaching one time and we just kept running off the right tackle, you know, to score. And I had coach said, well, coach, when are we going to stop running off right tackle? And I'm like, when we
When
stop
they
scoring,
stop us.
right?
Yeah.
You
When they
know?
stop us, baby.
No
So-
stops working.
It's
Yeah,
like us playing offense when they can't field the bunt. Guess what's coming? We're just going to keep bunting you until you can field it, babe. You know.
So I think the thing is you just keep staying within the things that you have the tools in your toolbox, and you don't have to overthink it, overcomplicate it. Like, you know, I heard Gil say, I've heard you say, you know, when you are communicating with that animal, you don't always see them all the time, but when you do see them, you can see how they're responding to that. You can also see how they're responding by how they, the sounds they make and their emotion that they do. You know, if I'm out there and I do a cow call, or I do a single call out there, and I'll call it a bull mew or a cow mew, depending on that, and I get a mew back, right? Well, I'm really not changing anything, because early season I've had bulls just mew back to me and I just give them that same flat. It's a little bit flatter mew. It doesn't drop off like what a cow mew does. It's a little bit flatter, and I've just given that, and especially through the tube. And I've had 3 bulls walk into me that all they ever did was mew. So I just stayed with that. You know, if I get out there and I give a cow call and this bull invites me with a, you know, just like that, well, I'm not going to scream at him because I gave a cow call and he gave me a chuckle back. No, if anything, if he responded to that cow call, I'm just going to give him that cow call again. He's inviting me. So I'm going to start heading that way, making a little bit of noise, maybe rolling a little bit of rocks. And then if he doesn't come into me, I might introduce another bull. I might do something to make him think that there's something of more interest over there, because now he wants me to come to him. He's inviting to me, and he's going to wonder, why in the heck am I not going to him, right? So what I've got to do is I have to tell the rest of the story. I'm not coming to you because there's another bull with me here, and this is the person I'm with. I'm dancing with this guy. So, and I don't have to make it sound like a big bull. I can do the same thing he did, man. I can just make some of them huffs, grunts, a little bit of chuckle in there, and we're good as gold. We're going to then see what happens with it. We're going to let it marinate. And that's the other thing too, is don't be so quick to change everything. You know, sometimes you just got to be a little bit more patient
Patient.
Yeah.
and let it play out, right? Yeah.
So okay, so that kind of parlays into the next one, right? And you've made the statement on a couple of these Geminar. This one's called the Germanar, about being an aggressive elk hunter, right? Why don't you elaborate on that and give us a little bit of that, right? Because I think that could be there could be a little bit of a perception there that it's like, bomb in, and we know that's not the scenario. So if you get a lot,
sometimes it is.
Yeah. But I want the
yeah.
folks to hear, where Joe's
It's
at
like
with that
anything.
aggression.
Sometimes you got to know when to speed up and slow down. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, hurry up and slow down. Yep.
yeah, hurry up to slow down sometimes. I mean, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna make this move right here, but and read your terrain. If I'm in a situation like I'll just give you one of my things that I do, because I have it right here with the computer. Like if I have terrain that's on a hill and I'm coming up to it and I'm staying real low, I'm actually, as I start to get to it, I slow down and I periscope, because I'm going to see a little bit different. So I'm actually head at that level where it's cutting right there, and I kind of periscope up a little bit just to see what's happening down in there. I've slowed down because I might have an animal coming to me from there that hasn't seen anything and knows he shouldn't see anything, so he's making a move. If I don't see anything there and I still have terrain down below that, I do the same thing. I drop down, I get a little forward, and I periscope up. I haven't made a call, but I'm checking my terrain. Now, if I'm in a position where it has changed and now there's a drop off that's giving me a little bit open, and I had a bull that was responding, at that point now I'm in a good location, because I have, if you can imagine it, I'm here, this country's coming like this, and it drops down, and that's within 30 or 40 yards because I've worked to that point. Now I might throw a call back behind me, because I could have a bull that is now going to start to come up because he's not able to see me and be in my effective shooting range. So you got to play the terrain. I can do it with the vegetation as well, right? So sometimes if I'm really covered and I know that I can get up there and find new shooting lanes, I'm hurrying up to do it, right? And I'm getting in that position. Or if I have a bull that he's sounding off 200 yards away and he's sounding off from one place, I'm not going to stay back here and try playing a game with them. I'm cutting the distance, and I'm going to get in and see what that terrain is going to let me do to get in on him. And I can do it now without making a noise, because he's constantly sounding off, right? If a bull is sounding off and coming to you, that's the easy. When they're doing that, that's the easy, because they are coming and they're communicating just with the engagement. It's when they're not doing that that you have to have those other things. That's where you have to create those strategies, those plays to do other elk things to attract them to you. I practice both of those. I want to know how to deal with a bull that's directly engaged, and I want to know how to deal with a bull that is not directly engaged with me, that I'm trying to pull in because I'm making him think that I'm another group of cows, or I'm another group of bulls, or I'm a bull with a hot cow, right? Or I'm a stud bull with a bunch of cows. I mean, I want to be able to do these, or I'm a lost cow or a lost calf. I want to be able to play those things to change my situation. And then once I get them there, I'm going to use my calls along with everything else I'm doing to be able to finish. if need be, in the right way. Okay.
Mhm.
So last and definitely not least, and it's almost shameless. And I know you said it before, but because we're talking to you, so one of your approaches, I mean, this is your standard, type bat tube. That's your standard type bat tube. But then you look at the soloist. What's the difference there, right? Why are we, reinventing the wheel on the soloist, to the point, and go in that direction? Why did you decide to do that?
So, hats off to Mr. Wayne Carlton, whose mega tube I used for years out there. And the reason I did was anytime you call towards an animal,
They know where you're at. Yep.
then they think you're that much closer to them, especially with a loud volume tube. Now, you don't have to do that. You can take that tube, a large bat, and you can blow back behind you, right? It's all great until, again, the issue comes to the closing. And Gil talks about my closing. And that's when that bull, all of a sudden, now that bull's at that 80-yard mark, and he's looking because he knows he should see a cow in that area. Well, once you're in visual space of that bull, you're stuck because you're not able to take that bat. Now, if you're partner calling, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, okay? But that's why I call this the soloist. Because if I'm by myself, I'm not able to pick up that bat and make that movement to throw a call back behind me. And if I make that call with my mouth, I am pegged right there because I'm calling right at that bull. And that bull's going to look right at me and expect to see a cow. And if he doesn't, he's done. He's out of there. So the difference is I have this so that now it's back behind me and I'm throwing calls, even looking straight at my animal. I don't lose eyes on him, and I'm throwing my calls back behind me to bounce off the trees. So now I'm 40 yards, 30 yards, 50 yards, wherever it's bouncing off those trees behind me. So if this bull is going to hang up 80 yards minus 40 yards, I now have a 40-yard shot. You follow me? So this was critical for me. The reason that we reinvented it was we all know that, the old ones with the 1.5-inch mouth have zero back pressure, right? So what I tried to do was I tried to create and hybrid the old school technology with the new school, with the baffling that happens in here restricts down so that I get better back pressure, and I still get some reverberation that happens with my sound chamber. So we're trying to just take what was an old school idea and bring it a little bit more new age to help us with our calling, but then, make it into what we need to be able to kill elk. Calling is one thing, finishing is another. You have to practice how to finish. And if there's anything that I could tell people on how to practice for this is do everything that you would do in an actual situation before you get there. So that means that you're going to be in a setup position. That means that you're going to call behind you with this right here. And then you're going to get it out of your way. And this is all on your range, man. If you want to if you want to shoot more arrows during your practice and make them more efficient, then put on your grunt tube, go out there, and you get a chance to practice your call. Give your cow call, give your little chuckle, whatever you want. With eyes on the target, push it down, get on your release, draw back, on target, stop that bull and pop. Okay? That's the process right there. Get used to that process. If you're not used to that process, trust me, it's going to change what happens when you actually are in that situation. Practice finishing. Know what it feels like when you get there. All right? Every football team has a 2-minute drill. Every basketball team has a 3 seconds on the clock to be able to score and win. They do win because they know what it looks like when they get in that situation. All right?
Yeah, I mean,
Thanks, brother.
They know how to close.
yeah. But getting to that closing point is so important. Learning how to call, then once you get inside them and you get them inside there, you got to learn how to finish. But I don't think we ever evolve out of that finishing, because the call usually stops to finish, right? Usually going to make the animal stop, right? I could
Sometimes you don't
give
have to. Sometimes you
right.
don't have to.
Sometimes you don't. Sometimes they walk in and they read the script and they stop, right? Elk are moving animals, man. They're constantly scanning and they will stop and scan. But a lot of times it's not where we want them to be. So as they're and if I could give any advice, man, don't shoot a bull that's walking or trotting or something like that.
Unless he's 10 yards and he's you know, the
Yeah.
distance is the thing. So if I
Yeah,
have
the
a bull
distance.
at 10 yards, 8 yards walking by me, I'm able to be on that bull, and I mean it's
Sure.
going to be in that spot in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah,
now
but
if
if he's
that bull's out at
35 or 40 yards,
right,
yeah.
and it's at 30 yards, that's a totally different thing. And
Yeah.
look, y'all could be dropping dimes at 80 yards, and you could
Yeah.
be totally confident in that. But what can happen between that blow being shot, released, and hitting that animal is, if he takes one step, it's a whole different. It
I
becomes
mean, what's that gate, right? I mean,
18 to
that's
20 inches.
right. You know,
Huge.
you're talking, 1 or 2 steps, you're 4 to 5 foot removed from where you release the arrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the bullet I shot in Colorado, when I released it, he pivoted. I mean, you can watch the arrow hit him. It's just a touch high, but he pivoted. So when he pivoted, it luckily we had it in the right aim small, miss small. It was in the right area and it took care of him. But
But imagine
the
if
bull
that was 80
moved.
yards.
Yeah, exactly. It would have took it even longer and he would have moved even more, So yeah, no, I mean, these animals aren't static a lot of times. It's a dynamic environment that we're learning how to be successful in. Does anybody else got a question for Joe that they have not had answered?
And I hope, guys, that it's kind of funny to be doing it this way, but I think what I wanted to add to the picture is a different kind of practice, a practice for success, not only just practicing the calling, but integrating your calling in a way that you're going to succeed, both in the calling aspect of it and the finishing aspect on it, and preparing to be able to do those things.
Yeah, and we're not diehard DIY guys. We hunt as a group, right? Very often we're going to have 2 of our guys or more in a group. Our coached hunts will be with somebody that's a caller, a coach that'll be with somebody. So a lot of times our scenarios are different, right? Our scenarios are different than a guy that's DIY. Guy spends a lot of time on the mountain by himself. I think he's figured out it's kind of boring. But at the end of the day, when he comes to our elk camp, for sure,
I tell you, it ain't boring.
He don't eat as good as when he
That's
comes to
damn
our
straight.
elk camp.
Damn straight. It ain't
But
boring.
at the end of the day, I love hunting with guys that I can call with. I got to spend a lot of time with Guy last year. We hunted a lot of the same areas and stuff. He's a very good elk caller. I mean, the guy knows the sounds, knows all of those other things, and it's up to us to help our coached guys finish. But for us to do that, we have to coach them into that finish. We have to coach them into understanding how to get that done. Even with us calling for them or them calling for themselves, we still have to use our calls to help them finish. Joe used his calls to kill his bull. I had to coax that bull back 3 times for Tom, right? Tom, his skill set is he can make a few sounds, but it's not like that advanced level calling where I can bring that bull back several times, and then convince him finally that there's something over there he's got to see, So calling is, I think it's the most important thing that we've got to learn. Man.
It is the most
Yeah.
important, and if I can stress anything, is the guys that aren't working at it are given a head start or given the elk a head start. So
Yeah.
it is the total game changer. Integrate it in with your ability to finish and understand, what you need to do there at the end. And man, I'm telling you, success rates are going to soar.
So, Joe, with knowing what you know now, the technology that's out here, right? Everything at your fingertips. If you were a brand new elk hunter starting today, how would you start out?
You mean by equipment or?
Yes.
Yeah,
Knowing with all of the stuff that's out there, what would you do to start my elk calling? Let's say you're brand new at this, but now you've got all of this. There's the internet, YouTube, Elk Nut. I mean, all of these things. Where would you start first? Where would you integrate all of that and start first for a new caller?
Knowledge. So if I have the internet, I'm going to get every app. I'm going to get every course. I'm going to go to places that people are going to be able to show me, teach me. I'm going to do what I'm doing right now with podcasts. It's all about the knowledge, man. If you are brand new this year, you can kill elk in your first year. We coached guys in Hunt Wars for 2 months, and with known killers on that team from different places. It was the guys that were at ground zero, had never called, had never hunted big game with the bow, had never hunted elk before, ground zero, and they won Hunt Wars because they practiced, learned, followed the playbook, and learned how to do what we do and to be able to finish. So, man, it's all about the knowledge.
So dive in, guys. You heard it from one of the best elk callers in the world. He would get him a quality call that fits him. He would dive back into the internet and listen to elk sounds. There's some really good podcasts that are out there. Western Contours, Blue Collar Elk Hunting, Corey Jacobson's podcast. All of these guys that have the wealth of knowledge of calling, man. Y'all get plugged in and learn how to make the sounds that will make you successful in September and October when we're in the woods. This was an unbelievable podcast. We ask for the juice all the time. That's the juice, guys. Understanding where to go get your information and then put the rubber on the road, man, and really the rubber in your mouth. But at the end of the day, man, that could go real way off.
Unleashed, baby.
Yeah.
Hey, let me do a shameless plug if you don't mind. So
yes,
for anybody that's listening that wants to hear about more about Joe's approach in the elk woods and some of the episodes that we've done on Western Contours. I don't even know how many we've done at this point, but I could tell you right off the bat, episode 265, 289, 259, 298 are really good episodes where Joe and I sit down and we just start dissecting everything from calling to approaches. So if you want to add to this Geminar with the other gents and the Germanar with JoJo, check those 4 episodes out. If you look at the Western Contours catalog, I want to say Joe and I have probably 6 episodes in there. So just search Joe Giglia on that. But there's really, really good solid info in that stuff too for Joe's approach.
Yeah, for sure. And wherever Joe's at, if he's in a seminar somewhere, y'all come sit down and hang out afterwards, get a fist bump from Joe. But this cat can call like nobody's business. Like I said in the intro, he will teach you how to call their mother-loving socks off. I mean, literally, it's so fun to hunt with him. And then it's a competition with all of us. We're all trying to get better. So we're all trying to outdo Joe. And, we pale in comparison, El Jefe. But at the end of the day, man, we're all getting better because of it. Joe, I can't thank you enough for sticking with us. I know your back's killing you. We appreciate you enduring a little bit of poking fun at you too, man, from the hieroglyphics from the caves and stuff like that, where you and Knox were elk hunting together. Ooh, I got one in for Knox. Guys, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe, rate, and review us. You got to go to Apple Podcast and iTunes to review us, and be sure to include your name and where you're from to get in our drawing for the Spin a Winner Wheel. And you can check out more elk hunting content at ElkBros.com. And just a reminder, if any of our listeners out there would like their questions answered on our show, just send your questions to info@ElkBros.com. That's INFO at ElkBros.com. And like we say down here in the Lone Star State, husbands, kiss your wives, wives, kiss your husbands, hug your babies, keep your broad head sharp and your powder dry. And we'll see you next week right here on Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Peace.
I got a whole bag of tricks for 5x5s and 6x6. Whether there's snow or a bit of rain, or that mountainous terrain, I got a pair of boots that fit just right, and Phelps calls get 'em close to my sight. When I pull the string and I watch that carbon hit, I just elk it. Man, I just elk it. I just elk it. I waited 350 days. I watched the wind blowing from all ways, and I watched the path that he walked in the fall. And there's no failure in my head when all I'm tracking is red, with the fist pump to the sky when the beast is dead. I just elk it. Oh man, I just elk it. I just elk it. Elk it. I just elk it. I creep up on him like a cat. He's long and heavy like a baseball bat. His body's as big as a rodeo bull. I'm a cowboy on his back. I slip the buck knife under his skin. I quarter him up with a big old grin. And I feel the pack with the gold that I'm gonna be eating. I just elk it. Oh man, I just elk it. I just elk it. When I go through town, this rack is turning heads upside down. The cooler's on and he's gonna start chilling on down, down, down. I just elk it. Man, I just elk it. Oh, I just